Hello, everyone, and welcome to the new season of the Purposeful Life Show with your host, Adrian Starks. I'm excited to share some new updates of the show with you, starting with a new look, sound, and energy, as well as a variety of guests coming aboard with intriguing topics of conversation. I hope you enjoy the new level of energy that will be brought to the show. Thank you for all of your support since the very beginning in 2019. Wow, it's been 3 years already? Because of you, the Purposeful Life Show is now in the top 5% of all podcasts globally, and we aim to get it into the top 1%. Continue listening to the show and share it with others. You can also now listen to the show on my Facebook page at Adrian Starks, where you can comment in real time and communicate with me about your aha moments. Thank you again for all of your support, and let's make this one hell of a year and be purposeful about doing that. Wishing you all much love and success. Stress is something that every human being on this planet has and will continue to experience. Why does it happen? Is it because we are unable to deal with problems? Is it necessarily our fault? From as early as the Civil War, World War I, and II, stress has been over the years studied and observed more closely because of its direct effect on human behavior. We are facing now a heightened era of stress, but how can we cope with it? What if there is something that is triggering our stress? Should we start there? Join me as I speak with wellness coach and Serenity expert Denise Belisle as we approach the question of, is stress really the problem?
Welcome to the Purposeful Life Show on the Connect Now podcast with your host, Adrian Starks. If you're looking for the ideas that could be your breakthrough for change in your business, career, or personal life, then this podcast is for you. Join Adrian as he speaks on topics of personal and professional development for the person behind the business and interviews a variety of entrepreneurs, business owners, and thought leaders to reveal their ideas and solutions to success and its challenges. Subscribe to the show and leave us a review. It's time to connect, learn, and grow.
Welcome back to the Purposeful Life Show on the Connect Now podcast with your host, Adrian Starks. Thank you for coming back for another episode, and I am so excited today to have a special guest on. She's one of our powerful leaders with the Connect Now Business Network, leading 2 meetings, and she is on a roll. Before we get started today, make sure that you go ahead and you download this podcast onto your favorite podcast platform, subscribe to the show, and leave us a review. We'd like to know how we're doing. Today's show is going to be about, is stress really the problem? And I am very curious to learn about this. Our special guest today is Denise Belisle. And let's talk a little bit about Denise. Denise is a wellness coach and Serenity expert, who is fiercely committed to guiding busy businesswomen to identify the true reasons why they have so much stress in their lives. She will design a personalized plan so they can live a long and productive life without worrying about falling apart and losing everything. If you're looking for a proven professional coach who can guide you to address your stresses, worries, and uncertainties about the future of your health, you've come to the right place, and I agree with that too. With great passion and willingness to go the extra mile with her amazing and courageous clients, Denise will guide you to achieve remarkable success. Her mission and commitment are to find the true cause of your stresses and to empower you to get aligned with your body and your mind. Wow. Denise, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you. And I just want to remind everyone that we're going to talk today about the triggers to stress and what causes stress, because I think stress for many of us comes in so many ways, and usually we think it's the problem, but Denise is going to help us today see how things are with stress and how we can better understand it. But before we get started, I want to make sure that we all know how to say Denise's last name because it's a beautiful last name. And I sometimes mispronounce it. So Denise, can you tell us how to pronounce that beautiful last name again?
Of course, it's Denise and Belisle. Bay like the bay, the store, bay. And Lil like the little girl, Lil, Belisle.
I love that. Belisle. All right, Belisle. I love that. I love that. So, Denise, let's get right into this. Do you find that right now in 2021 that there is a lot more heightened stress than there's ever been before?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, people are living, I think one thing that causes stress is uncertainty, and people are in
Mm,
limbo right now. There are so many people that have, either lost their job or not knowing whether they're going to go back to work or not knowing whether they're going to stay working at home forever, not knowing if their kids are safe if
hmm
they send them to school, and having either like the uncertainty of having the kids at home and having to tutor them and help them with school. There's so many factors that cause the fact that people have a lot of stress, and not just that, but also the stress of the proximity with people. When I go to the grocery store,
mm.
people are like, yes, keeping safe distance, but that create a mindset of distancing between people as opposed to being together as a humanity and as a society. So stress is everywhere right now.
It certainly is. And I agree with you, Denise. Going in stores and having to sit or even stand further apart, and even with the things that we're having to do with restrictions, it's causing us to somewhat not socialize as much. I miss having smiles, Denise. I miss talking to
I agree.
people. I was at the, yeah, I was running the other day and I met this couple. We started talking, but during that talking, I started thinking about my distance. And what happened was it distracted me from really being a part of the moment. So I agree with you when it comes to the whole idea of stress and how we're impacted differently right now with it.
Yeah, it's so much sad. It's sad. There's some sadness that people experience in those situations, right? Like there's no more chit-chatting at the
Mhm.
in line at the grocery store. There's,
Hmm.
everybody keeps to themselves.
Yeah, it's so sad. With stress, many people will think that, well, I am stressed out right now, and they think that stress is the actual problem. But what you're saying and what you're teaching people is that stress is not the problem. There is something else going on before it. And you talk about triggers. Can you explain to us a little bit about how that works?
Yeah, the basic of my thinking in that area is we experience situation all day long, different situation. It doesn't
Hmm.
matter what it is. Everything that we encounter is a situation. Whether is driving. I know a lot of people experience a lot of stress while they're driving. And let's say somebody cut you off, it's a situation. And the way you will
Hmm.
react, so there's a situation and there's a reaction. So every situation has a reaction, whether it's a good situation, a good reaction, a bad reaction, or a neutral reaction. And what makes it that
Hmm.
two people might be in front of the same situation but react differently? And that's where
Hmm.
my theory, I guess, or my way of thinking come about is what makes someone get stressed out in a reaction situation and what somebody get neutral or positive. And so that's
Hmm.
where all of that come from. So those reaction are learn behaviors over the years from things that we've learned from our parents, things that we've learned from our educators, our old boyfriend or girlfriend, people we encounter, teachers. Like I've seen it just popped to mind now. I've seen a video a couple of years ago, and it was exactly about that, about what we learn about our parents. And they were
Hmm.
showing, let's say, a parent being racist, and then you see the little kid copying their parents as being racist. And they were showing a whole bunch of situation like that. Like there was, being angry at somebody, and then you see the kids being angry at its doll, or and that's how we learn how create our behaviors from our youth and from everything that we experience. So what I somebody that I research and read all his book is Dr. Joe Dispenza, and he said 95% of who you
Yes.
are by the time you're 35 years old are a series of learned behaviors that is not yours. So only 5% of who you are actually who you actually are, unless you have worked on yourself and find out who you really are.
Ooh, I love that. There's two things here, Denise. You mentioned Dr. Joe Dispenza, which made me light up.
Yeah,
I read the book from him called The Breaking the Habit of Being
yeah,
Yourself. Is that the title of the book?
yeah.
That changed my
Oh,
life. And
absolutely.
you talked about Yeah, you talked about conditioned behaviors or things of learned behaviors. And I want to go back to that because this is very important. When people use the phrase like, this is just who I am, this is just how it's always been for me,
Yeah.
is that part of the learned behaviors that they've had over
Oh,
time?
absolutely, absolutely. Because they, like people that are, like you see that, like a kids that has been beat up as a child, most likely will have aggressive behavior as he grow up. And if it's a guy, for
Hmm.
example, most likely he will beat up his wife or his girlfriend. And it's not
Hmm.
that unless he has worked on himself and wanting to change the pattern, but he will most likely continue on that behavior unless, it's there's either I'm never going to be my parents, or you continue on the same groove as they have set up for you.
Right. Wow. So this is important for the audience members listening today, and even for myself. When we're going through a certain thing that is, we call it stress, there could be something that is before that Denise is explaining to us, the trigger. And sometimes those triggers can come from learned behaviors or experiences in our childhood life. There are some people that may remind us of certain things that could trigger us
Mm-hmm.
to feel or be a certain way. And that's just very significant for us to know today. You know, you're talking about this stress, and I find that it's so important for our health and overall well being, which is what you specialize in, because you talk about empowering the individual to get aligned with their body and mind.
Mm-hmm.
So, Denise, you're truly concerned with improving the future health of an individual, and you work particularly with business women and women from all facets of life.
Yes.
My question to you is, what does health mean to you?
Health, it's where you feel comfortable in your own skin. Because they could be, like, it doesn't mean you have to be super skinny and eating only lettuce. That's not health. Health is where you're at. Yeah, yeah, it was funny. But health is where you're comfortable in your body, is where you can move around without huffing and popping. It's where you don't feel bloating. It's where you have peace of mind. It's where you're happy for no reason. It's where you have joy in your heart. So in my view, health, that's what that is. Some people might weigh 300 pounds and be joyly and be able to walk around and be happy, right? And that's in a way it's health. It's if you're happy, if you're comfortable with your skin. Of course, if it's 300 pounds and it's detrimented for the long term to be not healthy, well, that person should look into, different ways to reduce the weight, just because it's in the long run it would be too hard on the heart, too hard on, the artery and the body structure. But for the majority of people, it's not about having, like a six pack and being super strong and all that. But it's just being able to go through your day, to be able to do all the activities you want to do and laugh and be joyful.
I love that answer to health. Denise, this is why you're on the show. All right. So I want to go back to what you said about the six pack because when I was younger, I'm going to say younger, I'm still into health, and health is a part of my lifestyle. But when I was younger, I was into the whole six pack. You got to look a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
You got to have muscle. The whole guy thing, macho thing, right? Which is actually, it's a low self esteem. But the whole like trying to look a certain way. And as I got older, I realized that that wasn't the case. What mattered was how I felt about myself. And what did I want to feel like? What did I want to look like? Not in comparison to anybody, not trying to outdo anyone,
Yeah.
but how do I feel when I'm a certain way? So I love that perspective because I believe that what you're teaching and what you're sharing with your clients is a new way of looking at themselves instead of looking at themselves through the mirror of the industries out there, which are forcing them to feel a certain way
Yeah, you can't compare
because they don't look
yourself
that
to a
way.
magazine. I think we're getting slightly beyond that now. Like there's more and more awareness from companies that are like, what's that soap company, Dove, right? Like they do a lot of
Hmm.
advertisement about you can have different shape and you're beautiful, right? Because there's too many stigma about a woman should look a certain way and should fit in certain size of pants and that's not necessary, healthy for young women that are growing up and seeing that. And that creates stress. When I was in high school, I had a young lady that was obviously my age, but in high school, and she was bulimic, and she became so skinny, anorexic and bulimic, and like she missed school for a few months, and then she came back and she was just like a toothpick, right? And eventually she left school and never came back, and I think she might have passed away. And this is what young women are going through, and that create a lot of stress too. And sometimes that stress is carry on moving forward, and in her life about the perfection of how they look and what they can eat and what they can't eat, and working out like crazy, and which is not really healthy for sure.
Let's talk about that perfection or those expectations that are put on particularly women, because I know that's your passion to work directly with women. And you mentioned too that you work with caregivers, the mom, the nurse, the soccer mom, the taxi, the wife or girlfriend in
Usually
charge of
it's
the
one
household
woman.
and managing everything.
Usually it's just one woman that does all that.
See, that's something for me that I needed to know. I'm like, okay, there's different women doing different things. He'd be like, no, that's one doing
They wish
all
they
of it.
could multiply themselves, but
And that is something that I want to discuss now, because I think there is a lot of a lack of education, especially from the male perspective, on how powerful, first of all, women are. We just wrapped up International Women's Day. And I wanted to give homage to you, to every single powerful lady out there that are doing the things that you want to do from your heart and from your mind.
Yeah.
What are some of the problems that you find that women are facing when it comes to them feeling exhausted and overwhelmed, Denise?
Good question. I feel that the reason why women are feeling overwhelmed, overworked, and exhausted is mostly self-indulge, like pressure that they put on themselves because of that learned pattern that has come from generation to generation. Women are the caregiver. They're the one that are the nurturer. They are the one that if the kids cry, 90% of the time they'll go to mommy's arm instead of daddy's arm. They're the one that are taking. I've spent so much time with the baby initially when the baby is born, that there's that bond that they can't help it, obviously. But it's more than that. Like for the house, let's say once the kids are grown and they can do with themselves, do their own thing. But the woman is still the one that will make sure that they are okay. Like she's putting that pressure on herself to almost like a mother hen, right? It's like, oh, are you okay? I want to make sure, like, be careful, don't go that, don't do this, and sort of expecting sort of perfection almost from their kid, like pick up after yourself or clean the house, like clean after yourself, but always double checking. But unfortunately, the teenagers are teenagers when it comes to that time, right? But they also, like, if they walk into the house, for example, they walk into the house after, let's say, the time that they worked, right? And then they come back from work and then they walk into the kitchen and they see like there's pots and pans everywhere and dirty dishes on the sink and jacket on the floor. And so what is she going to do initially? Like by default, like not everyone, but by default, she would shrug, be kind of upset, put her coat up and start cleaning up, right? Because it's just in the mother instinct. But what the good behavior to that, and that's stressful. She's angry, but she's just going to suck it up and do it. But a good behavior to that is not that, okay, that doesn't bother me. I'm going to go in my bedroom. I'm going to freshen up. I'm going to make myself a cup of tea. I'm going to sit in the living room. And when I encounter those that made that dirty kitchen, I'm going to say, please go clean up the kitchen. You made a mess. Go clean it up. And just relax and not make much out of it, right? Because it's again, right, the situation and the reaction. But it's not easy to go between one to the other. Another one example of situation reaction is like we talk about our trigger and our somebody push my button, right? You push my button, and we all have buttons.
Yeah.
Like somebody would say something and snap, we're off to the races with our comment and behaviors. But what I help women do, and people in general, but is eventually the goal is to put a big buffer between the reaction, the situation, and the reaction. So somebody push your button, and then it bounces back, and it's like, whatever, and then you move on, and that's the goal, is to be able, and it's a process that I go through and help. It's about awareness initially. Sometimes you will have the reaction, and then maybe an hour later you said, oh, damn, I snapped again. I don't want to snap, but I snapped. And then it will be maybe half an hour after. Maybe it will be 5 minutes later. Maybe it will be as you snap, you become aware of it. But you snap anyway. But then at some point, it will go before. You have a situation, you don't want to snap, but you snap. And then eventually it'll get closer and closer. You have the situation, and then you see like, that's okay. That's his bad, or that's, it's not my problem, or I don't react to that. And then you move on, right? So it's a process that's step by step, and it's all about awareness and wanting to make the change and wanting to become better, obviously, because people that don't want to change, they don't hire coaches, and people that want to change, they do hire coaches and have people to help them out. So.
Absolutely. And you brought up a wonderful point, Denise, about the situation, the buffer that you provide, and the reaction. I want to talk about that quickly here, because if they don't have that buffer to be, as you're saying, aware of what is going on, then they're going to be triggered by that situation, and then therefore the reaction is going to be pretty much out of their control. It's just going to be from a conditioned behavior or belief. Do you find that there's a sense of denial or resistance to acknowledge why an individual is stressed when you're working with people?
Well, that comes back to what you said earlier. I can't help it. That's the way I am. Right. So that's a denial.
Yes.
Right. I can't help it. That's just the way I am. And then I say, well, would you like to be different? Would you like to react differently? Would you like to not be triggered by those situations? It's up to you. You can choose. We always have the choice to change every single behaviors and reaction we have in our life, because we learn to have them,
do.
Right? We learn them. We can de-learn them. These are just neurological pathways in our brain. And the less you put energy towards those pathways and create new pathways that are how you actually want to be, then you will have the reaction you actually want to have. But you have to work on it. It took you years to build that pathways, and you put that energy into it. But if you stop giving it energy, and it's like a groove on the road. If you drive always at the same space, you see that on highways sometimes, old highways, like you'll have groove. You drive and your car, if you drive off the highway, that groove, it's like, whoops, okay, I got to stay on the groove. Or when it's snow and you drive in snow, and people always drive in the same place. If you want to change lanes, like whoops, and then you have to change groove. It takes effort to go over those grooves, but in the end, you're in the other lane, and then you think differently, and then you have a better quality of life and less stress.
That is the best analogy I have heard when it comes to relearning something or learning something new. When it comes to like being on that lane and you're trying to get over, and there's that groove you have to go over just temporarily to get into the other lane. So I want everyone listening today, our audience, to think about what groove do you need to get over right now, and what person can you look toward to give you that direction of where to get over. And this is a person like Denise.
Yeah.
She mentioned before that a lot of people don't want to change, and those who don't want to change usually don't hire anyone. They don't talk to anyone about changing. They just say, yeah, I need to change. But we all know this. Change does not happen just by saying it. It happens with action. And if you're going to be serious about it, you should really consider, what are my options? And what do I need to learn that can change how I'm being triggered by a certain situation? Denise, I love our conversation, and it shows very well why you specialize in what you do and why you're so successful. I want to go back to your bio.
Sure.
You said that you are a Serenity coach. Now, we don't hear this term very often, which is really good, because in the industry we're in now, everyone thinks they're a life coach. And if you're a good life coach, great, that's fine. But what I'm saying is there's so many people with the title life coach, but when I hear Serenity coach, it rings a bell to me. So what is actually a Serenity coach?
Well, I have a positive mind, and I like to talk in the positive. And I could say I'm a stress relief coach.
Ooh, I like that one too.
Yeah, but it's talking about what you don't want to have. I'd rather talk about what you want to have, about having more serenity in your life. If you're a business coach and you want to bring good business, into the person's life. But by being a serenity coach, serenity expert, I want to bring serenity in people's life, and that's mainly the goal of my coaching. People to become more serene and peaceful, to have better quality of life, to find the joy in everything, and to find out how you can be happy for no reason.
To find out how you can be happy for no reason. Ooh, aha moment for me. Okay, let's go back to that
Yeah,
one.
of course.
Happy for no reason. Usually, when I think of happy for no reason, I think that there's something that I have to do in order to be happy. So what you're saying is that we can actually be happy and not even have a reason for it. How does that happen? What does that look like to be happy and no reason?
It looks like if you, like, for example, let's say you love your job makes you happy, you love your husband or your wife and they make you happy, you love your kids, they make you happy, you love your pets, they make you happy. What if you lose everything? What if your boyfriend walks away or your husband walks away? What if your cat dies? What if you lose your job? Can you still be happy? Can you be, standing in the middle of the road with just the clothes on your back and still be happy? And it's all a question of attitude. It's all about recognizing, having gratitude for the all that you have or the little that you have, and be content with that. Not saying that you can't strive to have more, but you have to be able to just be. It's about gratitude, a lot of it. It's about recognizing the good in your life and be content with that. And doesn't mean that you cannot, as I said, want more and have more thing, but if you didn't have those things, would you still be happy? And the ideal is, yes, I would want to be happy if I don't have all these things around me.
Recognizing gratitude in our lives and what can we be happy with, even with the least amount of things around us. That is something that I'm going to ponder over, and I'd like for the audience listening today to ponder over as well. What actually is happiness to you? What does it look like? What does it feel like? And this is why I believe that what you're doing as a serenity coach, we won't say you're a stress life coach because you just said that you want to think about the positive.
Yeah.
What brought you on this journey, Denise, as a coach and helping an abound of women across the world from different facets of life? What brought you on this journey to be such a powerful individual towards changing lives for the better?
I have been involved since I was 19 or 20 into a self-improvement seminar yearly. Every year for two weeks I would go in a retreat and work on myself. So that would be something like we would have one analogy every year. Say, okay, now you've went through imagine that you are a house. Now take all the furniture, all the belonging that you have in your house, put it in the grass. It's almost like a Marie Kondo thing. And then bring back in your house the things that you actually want to have in your life. And I've been doing that since I was a teenager or a young adult. And it is now in my mind all the time. Like, it's not so much a Marie Kondo thing, but it's like, do I want this in my life? Is that helping me? Is that behavior really something I like? Like, I rarely get angry. And when I do, I feel so crappy that I can't be like that. Like, I really feel bad when I'm angry. I feel that tension in my body. And that's what brought me into living a more serene and peaceful life, because I don't like being angry. And it's an addiction, though. I know that people that get angry all the time, they're addicted to that little spark. It's almost like being intoxicated.
Yes.
And for me, it's the opposite. Like, it makes me nauseous. And so that's why I'm not. That's how I became to that. Like, I think by having done those self-improvement seminar as a young age for almost, regularly for almost like 15, 20 years, and then after that, less. But that totally helped me find out who I am and what I want in my life.
Beautiful, Denise. That's the journey that I want our audience to understand, that you had to go through it in order to get to where you are. Many people think people such as yourself just wake up in the morning and you decide that I'm going to be a coach and I'm going to help change lives. it doesn't always happen that way. It's usually a process that happens, and back to those grooves on the road. You went through your own
Oh,
personal
yeah.
grooves to get yourself into this path that you are on now, which I really appreciate. Because I feel that when you're trying to help people, it's also necessary to know how to help
Mm-hmm.
ourselves. And that's why I respect what you do. I want to talk a little bit more about stress.
Okay.
I don't want our audience to forget about stress here and the fact that stress is just not something you have, it's something that's triggered. What would be some advice or maybe one thing that you could tell our audience today that if they have a stressful moment, that moment where they are feeling angry, they are feeling upset, or they're feeling maybe used by
Yeah.
someone, what is something that they can do in the moment in time to create what you call that buffer before the reaction takes over more and it turns into this big blowout?
I would say take a time out. Almost like, when you
Okay.
have a kid that has a temper tantrum and you say, time out, go in the corner, right? Like parents have
I got a lot of
experienced
those when
that.
I was a kid.
Yeah. And, but give yourself a time out. Like admit that, okay, I can't reply to you right now. I need 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Let me go to the bathroom if you have to, if you have no other place to hide, or go outside, go for a walk. We'll talk about that later. Admit that you have a problem. The first thing is to become aware that
Okay.
you react in some ways that you don't like, or you're going to react in a way that you don't like. And it's awareness. Once you start becoming aware, the changes are not immediate. It's not easy to make that transition and to block it completely. But the more you become aware of it, then the easier it will come. And don't be shy to be vulnerable and say, hey, it's hard right now. I can't reply to you. I'm really upset and I need a timeout.
Okay, that's a good one because there have been times in my life where I was shy to say that, or I didn't have really the courage at that time to say it. Now I will say it, but it's important for us to know that it's okay to admit that you need to have this timeout or you need to have this space, right? So that you can think clearly about what the next step is for you. You mentioned also, too, that there's some types of activity that it will not stop stress from reoccurring in your life. And I want people to understand that the whole idea of stress will continue to reoccur. It's not something you just get rid of and all of a sudden it just never comes back. So we have to get into this element of maintaining our stresses and understanding how it works. And you also indicate there isn't one solution that will get rid of the stresses in your life. And I love that about you, Denise. When you're working with clients, do they come to you and ask you, okay, I need one thing that's going to help me get rid of my stress? Do you walk them through a number of steps or do you just say, this is going to be a process. I need to find out first what your stresses are and then you engineer backwards?
Yeah, I think the idea is to, like, when somebody want to work with me, I usually, like 95% of the time, I have an intake session, like a complimentary coaching session, if we can call it, and just to get to know
Okay.
who they are, where they at, what they want to accomplish, what they want to have out of life, why do they want to change, and what they don't like about themselves. And then we can assess whether we're a fit to work together or not. And then right away, if we are a fit, they will see some improvement right away from that first complimentary session. And then it's up to them. Like, I mean, if they have seen changes and they like what they've seen, then of course they'll want to continue on because they see the benefit of being able to make a few changes that will help them move forward. And you've built those habits of stress and negative behaviors over the years. And it's like losing weight. You gain 20 pounds in the last year. Don't expect to lose it in a month, right? It might take a few months. It might be faster getting rid of it than to the time that you gain it, but it will take time. It's not something that go away overnight. It's not something you go to sleep and the next morning you're cured. So
Yeah.
it's a process, and I usually, I think a minimum of 4 months. And people say 4 months, but it's amazing how quickly 4 months goes by, and people can really, at the end of the 4 months. I had a lady. She was chronic depressive after having had cancer and a lumpectomy. She was in bed most of the day. She would just get up to have a bite to eat a little, and then go to the bathroom and go back to bed. So that's how she was when I started working with her. And after 4 months, she was back working. She was working out. She had made the extremely difficult decision in her life, but that was causing stress. She had adult children living in a house that were leeching on her, not contributing whatsoever. They were still acting as teenager, but they were adult. And so she kicked them out. She gave them plenty of notice, but all the things, that the decision she's made, she was happier. She had seen a nutritionist. She has seen a different other modality of doctor that I can't provide because I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not a naturopath, to get different vitamins to help her out and all that. And she was a totally different person. And that was just in 4 months, from chronic depression to living a vibrant life.
Absolutely amazing. Denise, this is wonderful information. I've learned so much today, and I'm sure that the audience has learned a lot too. How can they get in touch with you to reach out to learn more about what you do and to even get a chance to have that complimentary session with you?
Yeah, it's on the first page of my website, denisebelisle.com.
Okay.
You just scroll up and ask for a complimentary session, and I'll be happy to communicate with you to go through the first process of just getting to know you, and we can see if we can help each other. And I promise that from our first session, you'll get benefit whether you continue with me or not.
Love it. Thank you so much, Denise. And what we will do is we'll place all this information into the appointment notes in the podcast. So make sure that when you're done listening, go to the appointment notes, and we'll create some hyperlinks for you to click on it to go directly to Denise's website and get that chance to speak with her, because you don't want to miss out on this. If you're stressed out right now, and I'm sure if you're living, you are stressed, you're going to need some help. And what better way to get someone who knows about stress and also who knows the process of what happens in between stress and the actual situation that's occurring? Make sure you go and check that out from Denise. Denise, thank you so much today. It has been a wonderful time to learn about stress and what causes our triggers. It was much appreciated, and you brought so much value to our show.
Thank you so much for having me, and I look forward to hear from you people, because I feel that even just a conversation, I love talking with people and discovering other people's life, and see if there's any way I can help you. That'll be a pleasure.
A pleasure it certainly will be, and I'm sure our audience will definitely reach out to you. Thank you so much, Denise. It's been a wonderful time.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Goodbye. And remember, everyone, that stress is not the problem. There's something that is triggering it. So if it's something that's triggering you, make sure that you find it out and go to Denise's website to learn more about that. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you in our next episode.
Thank you for listening to the Purposeful Life Show on the Connect Now podcast with your host, Adrienne Starks. Subscribe to the show and connect with us on Facebook and Instagram. Learn more about us by visiting our website at cnbn.ca. Go to connectnowpodcast.com to be inspired by more life-changing content. Let's connect, learn, and grow.